webinar hosted by ISM Learning Solutions. It is my pleasure to introduce Melanie Larimer, its facilitator. Melanie?
Thank you so much for joining us today for the ISM Mastery Model web seminar presented by our very own Jim Fleming. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will have time for Q&A. One continuing education hour is available to those who are attending. Lolita Jenkins will email you not only a CEH certificate, but also a copy of today's presentation. Jim Fleming, CPSM, CPSD, is the Program Manager of Learning Solutions here at ISM. Jim has spent over 30 years working for the Intel Corporation in senior management with roles in supply chain, process engineering, and organizational development. He retired from Intel in 2014 and he pursued his passion with ISM here for education. Jim's current focus is development of our multimedia education materials, the expansion of assessment processes, and instructing supply management courses that are aligned to our mastery model and our CPSM, CPSD certification. I now introduce you to Mr. Jim Fleming.
Thank you, Melanie. Welcome, folks. Today we're going to spend a little bit of time going through the mastery model, which was introduced at their annual conference in May of 2015. We will, as Melanie mentioned, be taking questions at the end, and so just bear with us as we go through and just be submitting questions as you have them, and we'll compile them at the end. A little bit about the mastery model. It's intended to be a global, or from a global excellence standpoint, it's intended to be an integrated solution where we're looking at assessing organizational capabilities, the individuals within an organization, and then combining those with our leading edge development products and services. ISM has been in the field of education since 1915. As mentioned, we just celebrated our 100th anniversary at our annual conference. ISM has been certifying professionals for over 40 years, and we currently have the leading data collection of job roles and continue to watch industry trends, continue to update educational products, and then match the technology and overall delivery of education to increase strategic significance throughout organizations. A little bit about the mastery model. When we step back and take a look at how the mastery model was scoped, we started to look at responsibility of individuals within an organization, which happens to be the x-axis. We then kind of stepped back and had a perspective around when individuals are entering into their career, there's a little bit more of an internal focus. So the knowledge and the skills and actually the work that individuals do early on in their career happen to be a little bit more internally focused. So it's increasing the personal value, and you spend more time honing your foundational skills as represented on the lower left. You then work on taking those foundational skills and you kind of drive into an effectiveness, and there's only a slight perspective around leadership. As you continue down your career path, what we have started to do is actually segment this into 4 different career levels. You can see across the top that we go with essentials, experienced, leadership, and executive. Each one of them progressing in movement from internal focus and working towards external focus, and that's across the organization. That's across the corporation or the entire enterprise. And you start to see that the career level moves from doing more of the traditional tactical type of components into transforming corporations through strategy. what the C-suite does, the vice president. And in the external focus, you start to see that there's a lot more of an emphasis in your leadership capability and not as much around building the foundational skills. So that was, again, a way that we looked at and began to create the mental model for the development of the mastery model. What we did is, over the years, with the certification, the job analysis, and we worked with a number of different industry and cross-industry subject matter experts, we kind of took a look at the holistic package of information we had. And we started to boil it down into the top competencies that seemed to fit quite well across any and all industries. And we actually mapped it to what our ISM has identified as the top 16 competencies. And the competencies ranging from business acumen down into system capability and technology. Now, these are intended to be guiding or directionally set competencies. You may have internal to your organization a set of competencies that are similar and or slightly different. An example, we've had some individuals come back to us and look at our competencies and say, you know, ISM, you're missing out on a purchasing competency. When you look at the definitions within our competencies and the sub-competencies, you start to see that that's not a wrong answer, but we have actually started to break down your purchasing competency into a number of different elements within these competencies. So purchasing covers negotiation, covers legal, category management, covers sourcing, and supplier relationship management. And that's one of the things that have become very flexible within this model, is the way your organization may look at competencies can pretty readily align with the 16 that are identified. And so it does create an agility within moving forward within any company. These will continue to be looked at, and as things change in the industry, or as we emerge with new job analysis or something comes about in the coming years, this is not a static model. We will continue to grow it. But at this point, we don't anticipate that these 16 are going to change significantly anytime in the near future. A little bit about the career levels within the mastery model. As I'd shown on that scope of responsibility chart, we had started to break down the career levels into 4 different components. And when we make reference to an essential, the essential, as it's stated here, is aligned to your basic or your fundamental knowledge. And a lot of the job codes or job roles that we see the essentials aligned to is more of an entry-level buyer, analyst, maybe a logistics coordinator. Whatever the title might be of a job code within your company, it's a little bit more of the entry level. And what we start to do is then we progress the knowledge into, from an experience standpoint, this starts to get into people that have been doing the job for maybe 5 to 8 years, and they have picked up a lot of the foundational knowledge, and they're now truly starting to create new processes. They're starting to integrate the basic knowledge and beginning to become mentors for other people. So when you see a title like a senior become very proficient, and you start to enter into becoming a much larger decision maker within the enterprise. So the definition that we kind of put to this is kind of a director or senior director. Now the thing to keep in mind, again, these are guidelines only. You may look and say, well, my corporation, you know, a director is maybe doing some executive type of items, or a manager at your company is doing what looks to be type of director level or leadership type. That's fine. You can kind of, again, map your job categories to this model and create that kind of flexibility. There's no right and there's no wrong. This is intended to be directionally oriented to help progress the entire supply management community. And then we get up into the executive level, and this is really looking at changing industry, shaping industry, taking the organization to the next level. This is kind of the vice presidents, senior vice presidents, and your chief procurement officers. And so within the mastery model, we have actually started to define the competency, the sub-competency, and then general descriptors for all 4 of those career levels within each one of them. And so what I'll do is on the next slide, I'll give you an example of what this looks like. So one of the competencies, and we will show you a little bit later in the presentation where all of this competency information is housed on our website. The first business, or the first competency we'll talk about as an example is business acumen. This just gives a basic definition of what business acumen means relative to the subject matter experts that created it. Within business acumen, you will see that there are 10 sub-competencies. We will, for the sake of this example, I'll show one sub-competency. So the sub-competency that we'll talk to now will be around building relationships. So if I were to pull this up and start to take a look from an assessment standpoint and say, where do I fit relative to building relationships? Keep in mind, this is intended to be a guide around knowledge you have and not as much around the title that you have. So you'll start to read through here and you will look at the descriptor and you should be able to self-identify, yes, this is kind of the level of knowledge I have today. So I very well may fall into, I'm inexperienced, because I can kind of identify stakeholders and I build appropriate relationships. Further down the path than just understanding, and maybe I don't have as much oversight of the stakeholder as in the leadership. So generally and directionally, I fall under an experience. I can then, in the mastery model, begin to take a look at what are educational products that will help me acquire new skills and new knowledge to move up into the leadership career level, if I so chose to do it. So that's just one example. What you will see within the mastery model, there are 16 competencies, a total of 69 sub-competencies, and each one of them are mapped to this level. Spend a little bit of time talking about the mastery model products that we have. And you can see here we've kind of listed out within each of the sub-competencies, we have a product portfolio. And the products consist of online courses. There are some that are for free that are available to anybody. And there are others that are paid, depending, and how much you pay is depending on your membership, whether you're a member or not a member, and whether within a corporate membership. There are a variety of items. We have a number of podcasts. Podcasts today are free. We have webinars. we actually have a number of different face-to-face seminars that we hold throughout the year, and that's around different regions of the United States. These are usually 2 to 3 day seminars that are instructor-led. We have workbooks you can purchase and walk yourself through at the rate that meets your learning style. And we actually have articles and CAPS research products. Now, CAPS research is a group aligned to ISM and partnering with Arizona State University, and they do a lot of industry benchmark studies, best practices, and what we start to do is actually help align that information back into organizations. So as you're making forward progress around your training, you're implementing systems, you're applying your knowledge, you can start to see what are other companies doing relative to not only implementing competency-based models, but what impact are they having to the bottom line? What kind of revenue impact? How much do they have, spend per employee? So there's lots of data out there, and a lot of the research papers and research products are usually aligned more towards your executive level and your leadership. Part of that is they are industry drivers. They're trying to take the organization to the next level, and they need somewhat of a comparison base. And then we'll continue to build out a number of different e-learning capabilities, and what we're finding is that the evolution of paper-based and face-to-face education is actually expanding, and that there's a large demand for e-learning or online learning, which can be tailored to individuals anywhere in the world. They can do it while they're commuting or in business travel or at their own personal leisure. So what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is just walk you through an example. If you were on our web page, what the experience is like interacting with the Mastery Model. You can go on to our website. You can actually walk yourself through this, and you can see all of the different varieties of the 16 competencies, 69 sub-competencies, and then every product that we offer. This is just going to be one sample going forward. When you go to our home page, you're actually going to see the Mastery Model listed on the left-hand side of the page. And anytime you get into this and you want to access the Mastery Model, you just put your cursor over anywhere in the gray box and you click. And that'll advance you to the Mastery Model. Now, you will have to have an account, an email account with us. And they will ask you to log in if you're not already logged in. And that will allow you to work yourself through any of the different scroll bars that we have in front. So when you click on the Mastery Model, it'll bring up this page. You'll see a basic definition of the Mastery Model. You'll actually see 3 different columns towards the bottom. The first one is your competency column. It will list all 16. You can actually do a scroll down bar and see all 16. What you see in this screenshot are just the top 5 competencies in alphabetical order. In the middle, it's blank at this point for the sub-competencies. And then one of the things that we do on the far right-hand side is we've actually mapped the competency and sub-competency knowledge that would directly apply to CPSM tasks or categories. So if you're studying to certify yourself and are studying for one of the 3 exams, we'll help you see what your knowledge that you're acquiring in this particular competency, sub-competency, where it's actually going to be applied in the CPSM exam. and I'll show you an example here in a bit. So from this page, I would click on the example that we're using is I want to look at my category management competency. So this is a simulation of if I click on category management. There are 3 sub-competencies aligned to category management. You will see on the far right now, I have started to populate what are the CPSM tasks that are aligned to category management in these 3 sub-competencies. So for example's sake, we will choose under sub-competency, we'll take a look at category strategy. What this will do, again, is start to narrow down a little bit further your CPSM. And at the bottom, you'll see that you can start to, if you so chose, you could filter out the products by your essential up through executive. For the sake of this example, we're going to look at all of them. So if I were to click on category strategy, it's going to bring me a list of selected results. These happen to be all the different products that ISM offers that are aligned to your category management and your strategy. You'll start to see we show a product code, the format, whether it's a podcast or paper or face-to-face or online course, give a basic description, and you'll see then the career level that it is aligned to. So if you were to go across the top bar, very top of the page, and you were to click on a filter by, if I clicked on experience, it would take this lower chart and only show me what courses are aligned to experience. Then you will see what a member price is, and you'll see what a non-member price. You'll see certain items are available for free. There are certain items that are not available unless you're a member. And then if it is a charge, you will see what the discount rate is for an individual product. So to give one more example, let's say I would like to take a look at a podcast. So I'm going to select and just put my cursor over the global mindset, and I would click on that. It basically is a podcast for an experienced level individual. Or if you're an essential and you want to get to an experience level, this would be a product that would help take you up. And what you'll do is once you click on that, it will bring you to a page where actually the product resides. Our podcasts are normally made up of subject matter experts that have, whether they're at one of our annual conferences or they are an instructor of our seminars, they actually take the time and they'll record a story. So in this particular one, we take an individual, the senior director, and she has spent 7 minutes telling the story around creating a global mindset. So from her perspective, this is how she sees the world evolving. We'll go back to our available results, and we'll look at another example. The next example we'll look at would be if I choose to take an online course. Let's say I want to take Introduction to Global Sourcing. I'm brand new to my career. I think, and I have been given the assignment of dealing with finding my sourcing strategies, moving beyond maybe the United States or the country I'm in, and I need to find how do I get new suppliers that are based in different geographies. So this particular online course, we'll see, starts to give a description around the course, the price. Usually these are on average 1 to 2 hours in length. They are downloadable to your computer. From the time you sign up to take one of these courses, you have 1 year to actually complete the course. So it provides a degree of flexibility. When you start the course, if you stop halfway through or 3/4 of the way through and exit, it'll actually have memory of where you left off. So say a month later you get back in and you want to finish it up, instead of having to start over again, you'll just go through the last portion. And usually at the end of the online courses, there is a small exam at the end, kind of a quick test to see if you actually remembered what you learned. And upon the completion of the exam, it will mail out a certificate. Now we're upgrading our technology, so this coming year, theoretically, you won't have to continue to collect those paper copies. It will be completely compiled on your Personify profile, and it will be a kind of a one-stop shop where it'll track it for you. So hopefully for those that have continued to try to find and print out those certificates, if you're a CPSM and you want to recertify every couple years, you don't have to look in all the drawers where you may have stored them or the files that you may have forgotten where you put them. And we will start to then back out of the mastery model. So that's just a little bit about how the model works. Now earlier I had mentioned that we have a listing of all of the different descriptions aligned to the sub-competencies. On this particular page, we've actually highlighted where that particular, the mastery model white paper. If you want to click into there, you can download it, you can take a look at all of the sub-competencies, the descriptors across all of the career levels, and you can actually, if you would like, you can actually begin to map those within your own organization. So the nice thing about the mastery model, it's being offered free of charge. Not the courses, but the model itself and the competencies and the descriptors. And what we're wanting to do, again, is kind of work to move the supply management community forward, and we're actually learning from those that are interacting with it. So the more we can create community, the more we can learn best practices, and this thing just becomes a, kind of an open loop system that evolves. This takes us back into the main page. We're just backing out of it. And again, what we just did around business acumen, you can do for these other 16 competencies. So all of that information is available to you. You can use it online for free. You can download it. You can compare it to your existing training model. One of the things we continue to do is as I mentioned earlier, we don't just take the static information we have and say this is as good as it gets. We continue to learn from others within the industry. And a lot of our conferences, we actually have guest speakers that come in and they talk about what's occurring in the field. They will give a presentation around how a challenge they have had, how they've applied some of these supply management principles and practices, and how they've achieved results within an organization. That material becomes the foundation for our continuing evolving education. We begin to continue to build more courses, more podcasts, more templates. We create publications and articles. We make it available to everybody within the community, and it becomes, again, kind of a reinforcing loop to help education and basically results of an organization. So we're going to shift focus a little bit, and the mastery model as it stands today is available. What we're currently working on is helping individuals and organizations step back and say, well, that's great information, ISM, but I have to have a baseline. Where are we? What should I be taking? And the thing that we're going to be releasing this year is an assessment process for the mastery model. And we're looking to help individuals and departments create that baseline through this framework. So the assessment that we're creating at this point will basically fall into 3 different categories. We'll have individual assessments, so any individual can go in and self-assess themselves relative to the sub-competencies and the career level. And this is not, and I'll highlight, this is not a test. This is actually an assessment, and you're basically looking at a descriptor and saying, yes, that best fits me. So the more honest you are with yourself, the better baseline you will have, and the more direct application these courses will incur. The last thing we want individuals to do is go through and say, well, I want to just mark myself as a leadership and an executive, and I will look good when I show people this assessment. And the bottom line is, it's really not about what is on a piece of paper. It really is about the internal knowledge you have and your ability to make an impact and get better results for your organization. So that's kind of the intent. I'll show you here in a bit a little bit about what that report would look like. The next level of assessment is for you as an individual and your manager. Each fill out the assessment on yourself. Now you have the ability to sit with your manager and have a good dialogue around your career development. You have a baseline where you think you're at. You will have a baseline where your manager either thinks you're at or would like you to be. And in that conversation, the charts will start to show here's where you're in alignment, and maybe here's a place that's an opportunity for you to go grow in a certain category, in a certain competency, to reach to where a manager would like you to be. Or if it's an assessment, you may take a look and say, well, I only think my knowledge level is at essential. Your manager may look at it and say, no, you're inexperienced, and let me give you an example. Your manager may have a larger organizational perspective that will help calibrate your knowledge and your skills, and you can then see, well, I didn't realize that I actually knew more than and actually were applying more than I gave myself credit for. And then the third assessment is really looking at an organization, looking at a collective whole as a department and seeing where your gaps are and where your strengths are. So 3 examples that we have. If you're an individual, this is just a snapshot of what kind of information we would feed back to you. You'll see on the Pareto, we would take the 16 competencies and we would put them in an order that showed you from either high to low or low to high. And you begin to see where your trends are at. So you can quickly look at this and say, wow, I'm pretty decent in sourcing, cost and price management, but I'm not as strong in systems capability or project management. That may be okay. At least you have a baseline. The spider chart or radar chart down below is just another graphical representation to kind of show you where you're at. Now, ideally, what we're going to do with this, you take this assessment, you actually go out and you work on your development plan, and then at some point in time in the future, you come back and you reassess yourself. You will then have a second set of data that will overlay on top of this to show have you made the intended progress. The next chart would be what it would look like if you and your manager sit down and take this. So you start to see where you're scoring and where your manager is scoring. And you can start to see where the gaps are. You can start to see where the alignments are. And it begins, again, a powerful conversation, and it should be looked at as a development conversation. And the biggest thing that you want to try to avoid is you don't create this fear-based. I'm going to use this data, and I'm going to, if you're not at some level, we're going to exit you from the organization. So hopefully that's not one of the outcomes. And then the last example just kind of shows if I am a department manager and I would like everybody in my organization to take this assessment, it'll give me kind of an organizational breakdown. It'll show me on the far right-hand side if I would like everybody to be experience level knowledge. It'll show places that I'm not as strong. It'll show me places that I'm better than I thought I was. A financial analysis, that might be a place I'd want to, as a department, start to do something to increase everybody's knowledge level around financial analysis. A number of different ways you could do that. You could create mentorship programs, you could bring in courses, or you could hire. If you have a new hire that you would like to bring in, maybe you look for somebody that has more of a financial analysis background. So there's a number of different ways that you can apply this. Today, this particular model is being used by our ISM services or our consulting group. Coming this next year, this will all be automated and available to anybody on the web that's a member. I mentioned earlier, the thing as a manager, you really need to step back and look, and this is only intended to say career development conversations are intended for a benefit to both the individual and the organization. If you're a manager, think about how you're having that conversation and not inducing fear. And then you may want to just sit back and ask yourselves as an organization, what are the barriers and opportunities that will allow us to move this forward? So it's just a be prepared, powerful tool if used correctly. Scary tool if used incorrectly. And with that, we'll have the remainder of the time to answer some questions.
Jim, thank you very much for that presentation. That was really great with a lot of detail. I'm going to go ahead and review the questions that we've received throughout the presentation. And first one here is the Mastery Model available to ISM members only?
It is available to anybody that goes on, creates an account. So if you're not a member, what you will have to do is get onto our website and create an account, which just gives you access onto our web page. You don't have to do anything more than that.
That is great. Another question that came in through and was that there was a reference to a personified profile, and what is meant by that?
Okay, so we have an internal system that is basically keeps track of member information and keeps track of courses that are being purchased. So it's basically our internal database. And I probably should not have used the term, creates more confusion, but it really is the means at which we keep track, the means at which we offer purchase of products, and it's a place where we have a central data source.
Another question that we received is, are we able to release the names of the companies that currently are using our Mastery Model as their development tool within companies?
We currently do not release the names in kind of a report that says here's who's using and what is going on. Now, what we have been doing is individual organizations that we're currently dealing with from a corporate membership. We've been having those conversations, and if they ask for an example of somebody that's using it, we may reach out to an existing corporate member and see if they'd be willing to share any of their experiences. But today we do not publish anything, and I'm not aware that we plan on doing it because there's a lot of corporate members that really kind of, for the sake of their own privacy, they don't want a lot of information out there.
Well, Jim, another question that came through is that we do have an ever-evolving library of educational offerings. And one of the questions that we had is there any plans here at ISM to add those retired products that we might have offered 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and have them linked to the mastery model? Or is this this model set up to accept today's educational offerings and, of course, moving forward, like you had mentioned?
We are taking a look at our existing data sources, where material has been housed. And over the years, we have, either at the end of a conference, we've compiled all of the different summaries and made them available. The thing we want to do is make sure that we only put on the site things that are relevant to the kind of the state of the business today and going forward. So we don't want to go back and put everything on that we have done in the past, because there comes a point in time when it's no longer relevant to today's world. So something 10 years ago may not have been as much e-based learning or e-based commerce, right? If we're talking about paper and faxes and those business processes, a lot of technology has driven us to a new way of doing business. And what we find is that when those are out there, there is really little to no demand for people wanting to know historical. So it's kind of that judgment. Now, we may go back 5 years and begin to populate, but that would probably be about as far back as we would go.
So another question that we got is, do we have an estimated time of when these assessment tests will be available? And do we have an estimated length or personal time it would take to complete an assessment?
That's a good question. Today, the assessments can be completed by our ISM services or the consulting group within ISM. And they're doing it with a number of companies around the world. It can be done through, bringing them on, setting up a contract, and what they have been doing traditionally is once the assessment is complete, they actually do more of a customizing training plan for an organization. What I just described from an automated standpoint is probably going to be released in the first half of 2016. And what we hope to do is kind of stage it in where we will continue to work with our ISM services, making sure that there is we don't get too far apart. We have the ability to sync it. And then what we're hoping to do taking a look at the release of pricing, that a lot of that is still to be determined. Now, Melanie, pardon me, I kind of have misplaced the second half of your question. So if you could just repeat that.
So the second half of the question was, once the assessment is available, do you have an idea of how long it would take one to take it?
Okay, thank you. We've been finding, and we have been doing some piloting, the assessment itself is between 60 to 90 minutes long. And I know, we've gotten feedback around, oh, that's too long, you want something shorter. And when we've worked with a number of statisticians, we've worked with the individuals that help us come up with our certification tests, and we really want to make sure that people are getting a good overview of their overall knowledge. And so kind of the happy medium is one question per subcompetency. And what we're finding is when you're sitting at 16 competencies, 69 subcompetencies, that kind of naturally, and if you're doing one per, that naturally kind of puts it in the 60 to 90 minute range. Now, people that have taken it, once they've gotten through it, we've gotten positive feedback that the time was well worth the investment. The second thing that we're concerned about, though, is that we're getting feedback from managers that are saying, you want me to potentially fill this out for each and every one of my employees. I don't know if I can do that. And that's a personal choice. That's a choice an organization can make. And we will continue to make it available so an employee can take it even if their manager doesn't. But what we're also starting to find is managers, once they see the results, they're very willing to take the time for individuals and departmental development.
We also received a question, Jim. We're putting this mastery model out there in the market, and we're also making a very personal assessment, a workplace tool for development. Are there any plans to also bring this and maybe incorporate this into the curriculum at the university level?
We continue to talk with a number of different groups around the country. Some of our affiliate groups are already working with local universities. And actually some of the universities are tailoring some of their curriculum to align a little bit better with the material that ISM is offering. So that's kind of an evolving pattern that we will kind of watch and see. We currently have, I can think of 2 or 3 colleges and universities that have designed their curriculum to that. We have some international partners that do not currently have a supply management or a supply chain curriculum. They want one, and they're working with ISM to develop it. And it is aligned very well to the mastery model and the CPSM certification.
So there is a question here which I will go ahead and answer in regards to going back for the older products and offerings, and would we be able to tie that into what affiliates have done? So the answer with that is that if we were to go back and tie previously offered events, it would have to be previously offered ISM events. We have not tied affiliate events to the mastery model. We have looked at the possibility of doing so, but as of right now, the mastery model is linked to ISM products and a CAPS research benchmarking studies. And there were a few different questions that came in regards to how do you know what each offering is available CEH-wise. If I could toss that back to you.
So there will be, when you go onto the master model and you find a particular class that you would like, you can actually click on it, and it will on the site itself show you in the description how many CEHs are aligned to it. So the seminars, face-to-face seminars, if it's a 3-day seminar, that traditionally is 21 continuing education hours. Online courses are usually 1 continuing education hour for 1 hour class. Some of the classes are a little longer. You will have that made available when you define which course you would like to take.
So another question is that we received here is, how do you create accountability in using the model? An attendee has designed capability frameworks before and placed it into development as a must-do. However, it's still a challenge to be used effectively. And I believe you mentioned that this was built as a guide, but I will go ahead and let you elaborate.
Yeah, and that's always the challenge organizations have. You do a lot of work up front, you create all these frameworks, you go to roll it out, and then 6 months from now, people kind of forget about it. that's where the leadership within organizations really is going to help transform that. We have certain corporations today that are very serious about development and capability enhancement, and they actually have systems that they track this. And so, ISM can make available these frameworks, but what we cannot drive is, enforcement. Community development is going to take, we will continue to learn from corporations that are having good successes and maybe be able to talk about that at some of our speaker sessions at annual conference, best known practices. And we'll, I'm sure, hear a lot of stories that, this is yet again the flavor of the month. I've been in industry a long time. I have watched a number of programs that have done just that. You spend a lot of time, you put them on the shelf, and a year from now, you dust them off and wonder why you have nothing different. So it is a jeopardy. It is a real concern.
So it looks like our final question here is ISM willing to talk to universities with supply chain minors and majors about the mastery model and CPSM certification, even if they might not be aware of ISM and our affiliate structure? And I would have to say yes, Jim. We're always willing to be in front of our audience, our potential audience, and talk about ISM and our new initiatives. Do you agree?
I would agree, and we have several examples where we're currently doing that. So
if an affiliate wanted an ISM staff member, you per se, me per se, Tom or Tony, those requests could be directly emailed to me, mlarimer@instituteforsupplymanagement.org, or we have our entire staff listing available on our website if you wanted to reach out to our Learning Solutions Department directly and Jim specifically. And in looking at all the questions, it looks like that concludes our program. Jim, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
As a reminder, we will follow up in about 24 hours. You will have your CEH certificate and a copy of this presentation. Please do not hesitate to contact me directly if you have any questions, or as previously stated, our presenter, Jim Fleming. You all have a great day, and we'll talk to you soon.